Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, I want to share with you something or a person, some info about a person that you might not be familiar with at all.
And this one is a really fun one. Super curious stuff here.
Yeah, super curious. At some parts, not exactly for the very squeamish, but very, very interesting. So, there is a woman who is known as Therese of Connersreuth. And she's very unusual for several reasons. Well, one of them is something you guys may have heard of before. And this is a picture of her. And so you see she lived for 64 years. She suffered from stigmata. And it would happen every Friday. And she would bleed from the points that Christ was pierced with, the hands, the feet, and she would also bleed from her eyes, as you can see here. And again, I just wanted to warn you guys, it's not really for the squeamish, so to speak. So, really, really curious. Stigmata is very interesting in and of itself, but there's more to the story as well. And this is Paramahamsa Yogananda, which you may or may not be familiar with. And he is a Hindu mystic who really brought yoga to the West when you get down to it. He actually had a meeting with her. He met her, as you see here, in 1935, because he was intrigued by her. She's a very, very spiritual, devout woman. And here we see she's born Teresa Neumann. And her life changed radically after her miraculous recovery from paralysis and total blindness at the age of 25. About a year later, she received the stigmata and begun fasting, which lasted 36 years until her death.
And how does that happen? These are like true miracles that have been documented, followed. It's really interesting here.
Yeah, pretty fascinating. And we've talked about, and I've done several videos on the possibility of living off the life force or living off of light. Ultimately, all of in this solar system, the vast majority of the energy that we receive comes from the sun. We do receive energy from the other stars out there as well, from cosmic origins. But the sun is what nourishes us. It nourishes the plants that we eat. It nourishes the animals that we take nourishment from if we do eat animal products as well. Ultimately, when you get down to it, it all comes from the sun. And so is it possible to live off of light? Is it possible to live off the life force? When Christ was resurrected and came back in the ascension body, he didn't have to eat or drink. He actually looked a little different. They didn't almost recognize him at first. But he could choose to eat and drink. And then we talk about such beings, and on the dark side, like Draco, for instance, which are able to manipulate their density and affect us here in 3D, also in 4D, perhaps in 5D in some cases. We've talked about the Ascended Masters as well, of which there are many, with many legends there and mysterious events and encounters as well. There's been quite a few people, when you start to look at it, that have been said to not eat at a certain time period, or to eat very, very rarely. And there was a yogi that was monitored twice. Once, I believe, for 15 days, and the second time, I think, for closer to 3 weeks. And I've done videos on him before. He was watched by doctors, and they had his vitals, being watched and monitored the entire time. He did not eat or drink, and he was still very, very alive and actually in good shape for his age. And it didn't affect him in a negative way. There's some people that seem to flip a switch, and something changes in them, and usually it's a spiritual awakening.
Yes, which is a very beautiful thing. I mean, but it can bring about physical changes, emotional changes. And it's just like it's like you wake up and you're a different person.
And perhaps that's kind of where we're going. As we know, there's tremendous energetic changes in us. right now. And we see it every day because we work on so many people energetically. We feel it in ourselves because of our daily spiritual and energy practices. And so when we go further, we see about a year later, after the age of 25, she received the stigmata and began fasting, which lasted 36 years till her death. Her only nourishment was the Holy Eucharist, and, for the little wafer. And for this reason, the Nazi authorities during World War II withdrew her food rationing card, gave her a double rationing of soap to wash her towels and clothing, because every Friday she would be drenched in blood while she was in ecstasy experiencing the Passion of Christ. And Hitler was very fearful of Teresa, and Hitler was fascinated with the occult. He was literally, if you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and you see how the Nazis were scrambling about for everything from the Ark of the Covenant to the Holy Grail, they really were. They were going around trying to gather anything and everything they could that was an object of power, also trying to delve deeper into the mystery, and also making pacts and agreements with the devil, quote unquote, the Greys and the Draco.
And I truly believe that Hitler was, he was witness to something otherworldly, and he believed in it so strong.
So again, she was born in Konnersreuth, Germany on April 8th, 1898, from an extremely poor Catholic family. Her greatest ambition was to become a missionary in Africa. That was not possible, as she was the victim of an accident at the age of 20 when a horrific fire broke out in a nearby plant, and Teresa went to help, and in the process of passing buckets of water to stop the flames, she got a horrible lesion in her spinal cord that caused paralysis in both of her legs and complete blindness. Teresa then passed her days in prayer, but one day her miraculous recovery occurred in the presence of Father Neighbor, who wrote, Teresa described a vision of great light and an extraordinary sweet voice that was asking her if she wished to be healed. Teresa gave the most surprising answer when she replied to her it would not make any difference whether she would be healed, stay the way she was, or even die, as long as it was the will of God. The mysterious voice told her that very day she would receive a small joy, the healing of her infirmities, but that she would still have a lot of suffering to endure in her future. For a little while, Teresa lived in fairly good health, but in 1926, her most important mystical experiences started and lasted till the day she died. She received the stigmata, and she began a complete fasting, with the Eucharist as her only nourishment. Father Neighbor, who administered communion to Teresa every day, wrote, In her God's promised word is accomplished. My flesh is real food, and my blood is a true drink. Teresa offered the Lord her physical suffering due to the loss of blood caused by the stigmata that started every Thursday during the day when Jesus' passion started until Sunday, his resurrection. This suffering was offered through her intercession for sinners that asked for help. Every time she would be called upon to a person's deathbed, she would be witness to that soul's judgment, as it is usual to happen right after death. Ecclesiastical authorities performed many examinations in regard to Teresa's continuous fasting. Carl Strader, S.J., directed by the Bishop of Ratisbon, studied and examined the life of stigmatized Teresa and confirmed the significance of Teresa Neumann's fasting is to show the people of the world the value of the Holy Eucharist and to make the world understand that Christ is actually present in the bread of the Eucharist, and through the Holy Eucharist, physical life can actually be preserved. So, pretty interesting stuff. And we also have cases of this of a non-Catholic, non-Christian origin as well. And we'll delve into more of those in the future. I just wanted to share this with you because it's just one of those interesting, really interesting instances of a life that was very, very unusual, and possibly showing us where we can go and what we can really achieve if our heart is in the right place, or devotion's in the right place. And again, I don't personally believe it's necessary to have any one particular dogma that one adheres to. And it's really more what's in your heart. If the love of Christ, for instance, is in your heart, or of any of the other amazing masters that have walked the earth as well.
Oh, definitely. There's so many to look at and to study, and do follow your heart. What inspires you? What gets you curious?
We are so much more than just flesh and blood, and that is so evident in the examples of so many of these amazing lives. So I hope you guys found this interesting. I do want to thank everybody that's supporting us over on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.